My name is Nate Wylie. I'm owner and operator of Infinite Talent. We specialize in talent acquisition services for startups primarily. Been in business now full time 2.5 years. What I'm focused on right now is like most entrepreneurs, like how do I scale? How do I not only just become more efficient in my operations, but how do I build better systems? How do I deliver faster results to my clients? And of course, looking to incorporate AI as much as possible throughout my workflow so that I can automate some of the administrative tasks and can focus on what's most important to my clients, which is finding that niche talent. I started my career in staffing. So for my very first recruiting opportunity, I understood the value of the work. Whereas if anyone's familiar with staffing, me as a recruiter, I'm actually finding the talent, but the company is the one that actually keeps most of the fee. So I've just always understood the value of the dollar amount that could be associated with the recruiting field. I went in-house to gain more of that strategic experience, whereas staffing is more of just like a churn and burn type of environment, understanding long-term roadmaps of how hiring is going to impact the business was very important to bring me to where I am now. I think one of the most pivotal moments was when I joined Lyft in 2018, which sort of gave me the opportunity to see what a tech organization, at that point it was a startup, but we quickly IPO'd soon after I joined. And so being able to see the difference in how once they became a public company and how they began to operate and make those different changes and how decisions were made. I'm always trying to be very calculated and intentional about not only the way I show up for clients or stakeholders, but also in my own career path and making sure I'm understanding what actually brings value to clients. And I was able to learn a lot of that at Lyft. And so while there, I was very intentional about making sure I made my way around in ways of sort of seeing all the different components of the business. And so I recruited for tech, I recruited for AI machine learning, I recruited for engineering, I recruited for operations, for business, for finance, for marketing. So just being able to see how all these different groups operate independently as well as how they collaborate was very beneficial to me, because now I can take all of that. And when I go on a fractional assignment, it's easy for me to connect the dots because I understand how all these different stakeholders work together. And then leaving Lyft, I went and joined a startup as their first head of talent. And so I was able to really set the foundation of a recruiting process by implementing an applicant tracking system, implementing the actual hiring process, implementing change management around how we actually assess talent, coming up with interview kits and scorecards and coaching managers on how to actually interview and how to sell opportunities. My leadership style, and even when I go to a client as a fractional recruiter or a fractional talent manager, in some way, shape, or form, I'm having to lead that process and be very influential. Although I may not have direct reports or I may not be a C-suite member, I'm still working very closely with leadership, because at that point, if they've contacted Go Fractional, looking for someone like myself, they're in a space where they need to grow. And they're probably trying to, get from where they are now to where they need to be in a relatively quick amount of time. So I need to come in and observe and assess, but also I can't spend a lot of time biting my tongue. So learning from some of the senior leaders, even if they weren't in talent acquisition at the big companies, sitting in those rooms where decisions are being made, I just have learned to be a lot more vocal earlier on, because usually you'll get a lot more respect by being bold in your decision making or standing on, your experience as a subject matter expert. And that's what I've learned, and that's what I bring to what I do now in my fractional work. Talent acquisition, usually you'll hear it, interchangeable with recruiting in general. Talent acquisition usually incorporates just more broadly those different components around how we actually source and assess and hire talent. It goes more into really being focused on candidate experience or benefits or onboarding or, are our interview processes vetted out and fair? And, are we looking at the data to see how many people are actually passing and making those adjustments? So talent acquisition is usually when you have the basics and you are mastering the simple processes when it comes to recruitment. And so you want to get a lot more complex and start to improve the efficiency. And that's when you start to step into the lane of now we're operating more like a talent acquisition team versus just trying to hire people. An executive talent acquisition a professional coming in to do fractional work. Typically, the benefit is you have someone who has likely led somewhat of a large team of recruiters and has had that opportunity to focus on strategy, to focus on systems, processes, setting up data, setting up reporting, and then also being the voice for the talent team in order to implement actual change that's going to benefit the organization for all. And then on the flip side of that, I myself am still actively sourcing talent. Like I'm still reaching out to cold candidates. I'm A/B testing my outreach and my sequences. I'm telling them your problems and challenges, and they're telling me a different way you should look at it. And if you want this person to come into your organization, I think we should be listening to the candidates as well before we hire them. That executive piece or that more strategic leader piece is almost like some coaching involved of actually trying to get the founder to understand, hey, like let's look at it a different way. You saying, you need these particular skill sets, or you need someone who comes from this sort of background, this sort of industry. Let's really think through this and understand, like, are we hiring for an immediate need and immediate problem, or are we expecting this person to actually come in and be able to implement something long-term, in which maybe we should think about this role a little bit differently. The way I start to build trust and calibrating with founders and hiring leaders is I try my best to take a step back and conduct a very comprehensive intake, almost to the point of where, I'm just asking a bunch of questions. I'm not making any assumptions. I'm not trying to speak them to the punch of what they're trying to say, because I really do need to understand where they're coming from, what their problems are, what their challenges are. Because as I'm going to market looking for candidates, I have to start to ask these questions to the candidates as well and vet them in a way of not necessarily trying to discourage them from the role, but I also need them to understand the expectations from the client side, because there needs to be a match there. So if I'm reaching out to someone who is looking for a new job because they already feel like they work too much, and I know this founder never sleeps, that's probably not going to be a good match. I try my best to provide context as to why I'm making certain decisions, why I'm presenting certain candidates. I have to be honest and transparent with the founder to share that in a way that's where I'm not pissing anyone off, where I'm not being overly aggressive, or I'm not trying to make excuses. But we have to talk through this. Also, as a talent acquisition professional, we can disappear for a couple of days because we're heads down sourcing. So I have to do a better job of showing them what my work looks like, how many people I'm contacting, how many people are responding positively, how many people responding negatively. That usually helps build a little bit more trust versus them not knowing exactly what my day-to-day looks like. The organizations are trying to be very intentional and strategic about the help they need and for how long they may need that help. A lot of organizations, they have a problem and their immediate jump is, hey, let's hire some people. Let's get a job posted. And what they come to find out is, in the time it may take them to find this person that's going to do this very specific thing and this unique problem that has arose within the organization. If they would have hired a fractional senior person who probably has already solved this before, they could have the problem solved, in a quarter or two without having to take a quarter to actually even hire the person. Hiring someone as a fractional leader has a bit more prestige and just saying, let's get a contractor in here. From my experience, usually if you're hired as a fractional leader, you're sort of given the same access and respect as more of a full-time person. At the core of fractional work is, we're entrepreneurs as well. So I think that's also why we're so successful, because within your business, we also have a business owner's mindset. And we want to make sure that we're bringing to you what's going to most impact your business. Whereas we know as fractional workers, we're rated more on our results, like our outcomes. That's what's going to increase our value. Like I said, I'm in a unique seat being a recruiter as well as being fractional. So I am always observing all the different elements within these organizations and how they operate. I think, the future of work is going to involve and accept a lot more fractional professionals, even if they're not executives in a sense where they haven't led large teams. I just think the way the world is wanting to work and the way that people and companies want to maintain some ownership, flexibility, capability to be agile and pivot whenever they want to. I think as individuals with a certain skill set, you should always be prepared to pivot into fractional work, because that's going to help you bridge the gap. If your dream is to stay in-house and to stay a permanent employee, taking on fractional assignments and being able to step in and solve problems is going to make you a much more valuable professional while you continue to look for those long-term stable opportunities.